So I'm trying to be a little bit better at it.
I got that part.
Okay, so one thing I want to address is our basic focus for this weekend. It's not just my focus in when I'm teaching, it's my primary focus in my own personal training, right? I always start worst case scenario. I think that's super important. If I can dig that hole pretty deep, make the problem pretty bad, but if I can come up with a reasonable, robust, replicable answer that's somewhat decent in that worst case scenario, and I know I've got it loaded in my subconscious, and I have that, I know in my heart of hearts I can deal with it, then anything less than worst case scenario is not as much pressure. Does that make sense? Whereas the reverse is not true, right? If you spend all your time kind of working where you know everything's really cool and you do your bitchin' cool guy move, and then you start behind the 8 ball, maybe not so much, right? And I know all of you are super switched on, tactical, face shooting slayers of bodies, but indulge me just for this weekend that possibly we might not be switched on all the time, right? That maybe we're not situationally aware 100% of the time. I think modern society is designed to take our concentration away from that. That's why we have billboards and electronic stuff and all these things, and people make a living figuring out how to get people's attention to sell them crap. And just certain things get in the way. Like, I use this because it's the most, to this day, it's still the most visceral example I have is I took my kids to Disneyland. My son was 4-ish, 5-ish, and it was his first trip. And he had ADHD. And it was such a stupid decision because we actually went in the summer. Don't ever do that. Don't ever go to Disneyland in the summer. So we've been there all day. I was with my brother and his kids and my mom and my wife and my 2 kids. And there's 18 gajillion people around. And it's about 1 o'clock, and we kind of stopped. We gathered up, said, what are we going to do next? What ride? Where should we go? And at 1 second, my son is literally right there. I can feel him touching my leg. Blah, 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 and I look down, and he's gone. And all I see is the sea of bodies. Well, I'm sorry. I was not situationally aware of Mr. ISIS active shooter, pickpocket, sucker punch dude at that moment. All I cared about was, where is my son? And I mean, that's probably the most extreme example, but I think it happens. Anybody who's got a kid, anybody has kind of situation like that, it happens. So our attention can wander. If that's when the attack happens, we're pretty far in that hole. So if we can build that response where we can still survive and get through that, then anything less is going to be, still tough, but not as tough. Does that make sense? All right, cool. So like I said, it's not just where I teach. That's my own personal training. When I'm in jiu-jitsu, in my jiu-jitsu class, and I'm rolling, and I end up rolling with a white belt or a blue belt, or somebody who's appreciably smaller than me, I don't start tied up, throw them down on the ground, take knee on belly, I'm crushing you. I usually pull them on top of me, maybe into mount, maybe into side control, and let's see, can I work my way out of that? I think it's a smarter way of dealing with it. When I go with another black belt, that's not happening. Right? Now I'm switched on and everything's working. But as often as possible, I want to build that. I can deal with, it's not a strange world to me to be in a bad place. It's like, cool, I can deal with it. I'm Bane, right? I'm Bane. I live there, right? I think it's an easier way to deal with stuff. Does that make sense? Cool.